Hello everyone, Namaste and Assalamu Alaikum. Hi, this is Mariya Ma'am, your Master Teacher of Biology here at Vedantu. Bachcho, welcome to our Prodigy Series, and today we are going to study an amazing topic from our second chapter from ICSE Biology, that is cell cycle. Yes people, we are actually studying this chapter, second chapter, that is structure of chromosome, cell cycle and cell division. And under this Prodigy series we are already done with the introduction of the chapter, and then we have completed one session under this Prodigy sessions, that is where we studied the structure of chromosome, structure of DNA, right? So people, today is the second session, and here we are going to actually discuss various steps involved in cell cycle, the significance of every phase which is there in the cell cycle. Okay, so people, I am excited. Are you equally excited? If yes, hit on the like button, post me a you in the comments, share this video with your friends, subscribe to our channel, hit on the bell icon so that you are notified about our upcoming sessions. So yes people, let's get started. Now people, in the previous session I had asked you a question. What was that? What is the composition of chromatin material, right? So people, there's Janvi, Jyotsna and Sweetie. All these three students have actually posted the answer in the fastest manner, like very soon, right after my session ended, they had posted the answers, and that's the reason why I claim them to be my official Chintu caddies for the day. Kya baat hai? So yes people, the chromatin fiber is made up of 60% histone proteins and 40% of DNA, right? So people, let's get started with our cell cycle. Now, cell does really have a cycle? Na. So बच्चों, it is nothing related to cell and उसका कोई cycle, ना, बिल्कुल नहीं. But people, like, we all follow a routine. We all have a cycle. Like during this lockdown, when exams are over, there's only three things that we do: eat, sleep, repeat, right? So in the same manner, there are certain steps, there are certain phases which a cell also repeats. Like if I talk about insects, there are four stages: egg, larva, pupa, adult. And then the adult again lays the eggs, and then again the steps are repeated. है ना? That's the life cycle of an insect. In the similar manner, there's the life cycle of a cell as well. So what is the life cycle of a cell? When a cell is born, it will slowly and gradually grow in size. And once it grows in size, it will then split into two equal halves and give rise to two daughter cells. Now these two cells will again participate in the same process, and that's the reason why we say this is the cycle of a cell. Okay, this is a cycle that a cell follows, cell cycle. So we are actually going to study what are the steps involved in a cell cycle. Okay, so people, as I said, when a baby cell is born, it will slowly and gradually grow up in size, and then it will prepare for cell division. Now why do cells undergo cell division? Can any one of you let me know in the comment section ki why do cells undergo division? Come on. Okay, now some of you are saying, ma'am, it will lead to the production of new cells. Okay, fair enough. Now why do our body requires new cell? There are several reasons to it. Okay, now the very first reason is to attain growth. Okay, now people, we all were born as tiny little babies, like we were 50 to 52 centimeters in length when we were born. Okay, like just this tiny little baby. So I'll call it as AB baby. Okay, or maybe to be very precise, AKR as a baby. Okay, now people, if this is the baby AKR sir, okay, the cells inside his body will divide and redivide, the number of cells within his body will increase, and eventually what we today see is a grown-up AKR sir, right? Now this is not just the journey that is happening within AKR sir's body, this is what will happen within every individual's body. Like every baby will grow up into an adult size, and what is assisting the body to grow up into the adult size, and that's the addition of new cells by cell division. Okay, so yes, cell division is essential for the growth of the body. Okay. Now second reason, replacement of the worn out cells of the body. Okay. Now every cell has got its lifespan. Like if we talk about our red blood cells, their lifespan is about 120 days. Okay. Like 30, 60, 90, 120. After 4 months, they will die. So those cells need to be replaced. You know what? There are approximately 37.2 trillion number of cells present in our body. And every day, approximately 330 billion cells die. Okay. And then within a span of 8 to 10 days, 30 trillion cells are replaced. Means overall all the cells present in our body, approximately, okay, those many number of cells are being replaced. So on such a massive scale, the cells are being replaced in our body. Okay. The major amount of dust that we see in and around our home, that consists of dead cells. So yes, cells are born, cells die, and those cells are even replaced. So replacement of the dead worn out cells takes place by the means of cell division. Okay. Then people, wound healing, the repair of our body. So people, at times we fall, we get injured, wounds occur. So for the wounds to heal, those damaged, worn out, those kind of cells, they are replaced again with the help of cell division. Okay. Then last and the final stuff, that's reproduction. Like people, every individual has got two objectives in its life. Okay. Like every organism present on the planet Earth has got two objectives. One is growth and the other one is reproduction. So every organism will grow and then the organism will reproduce. Okay. Now for even reproduction, we require new cells. Okay. And even if a tiny little cell, if it has to reproduce, okay, it will split by the means of cell division and new cells will be formed, right? So why does our body require new cells? For four reasons: growth, replacement, repair, and reproduction. Understood? People, if understood, hit on the like button, post me a yo in the chats, share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel and hit on the bell icon. Okay? Come on people. So let's proceed. So people, when I say that a cell is born, it will grow and then it will prepare itself to undergo cell division. Okay? And this is what is the cell cycle. So to define a cell cycle, it is basically a series of events. It is a sequence of events that occurs between the cell formation and cell division. So suppose here is a cell and here are the two daughter cells which are formed after cell division. So everything falling in between them, all the events which fall between them are a part of cell cycle. Okay. So it will include everything. So when I talk about cell cycle, it is broadly divided into two parts. The first part is known as interphase and second part is known as the mitotic phase. Okay. Now people, mitotic phase or dividing phase. Mitosis is a type of cell division. So it is a dividing phase. Okay. So interphase is a non-dividing phase. Okay. So cell cycle includes two phases: non-dividing phase, dividing phase. Again, non-dividing phase, dividing phase. These two phases will be repeated again and again and again in a cyclic manner. And that's the reason why it's called as a cell cycle. Okay. So people, let us actually focus on to these two phases of cell cycle. So when I talk about interphase, inter means in between. So interphase actually falls in between two successive cell divisions. So suppose here is the first mitotic phase, here is the second mitotic phase. So in between them, there will be an interphase. Okay, okay. And then interphase will definitely be followed by mitosis, right? So mitosis occurs after interphase. And once mitosis is done, again interphase will be followed. Okay, so see, there will be interphase, then mitotic phase, then again interphase. So this keeps on repeating, like you do na, eat, sleep, repeat, as I said it in the initial part of the session. Yes, the cell also does the same thing. Mitotic phase, interphase, mitotic phase, interphase. Okay, so now let's have a look at the different parts of interphase. Okay, now interphase is broadly divided into three phases. How many phases? Three phases. Now the very first phase is the longest of all, which is known as G1 phase. G1 stands for the growth 1 phase, or the first growth phase. Okay, then it is followed by S phase. S stands for synthesis phase. Synthesis phase. Okay, then synthesis phase is followed by another shorter phase, which is known as G2 phase. Now G2 phase stands for the second growth phase. Okay, now people, all these three phases, okay, all these three phases are a part of interphase. Okay, the yellow colored shaded parts of the cycle belong to the interphase. Okay, so interphase, interphase में क्या क्या आता है? There's G1, there's S phase, and there's G2 phase. Okay, so here interphase is complete. Now people tell me, interphase will be followed by which phase? Which phase? Come on, let me know in the comment section. Interphase will be followed by which phase? Perfect kids, that's the mitotic phase. Okay, and then again mitotic phase will be followed by interphase, right? So people, let us now focus on what exactly happens in G1 phase, synthesis phase, and the G2 phase. Regarding mitotic phase, we will be dealing with it in the next session. Okay, so people, G1 phase, the first growth phase. Now the name itself suggests that the cell will grow. Now people, whenever a baby is born, it will grow up in size. है ना? Like when a human baby is born, the weight of the child is barely 3 kgs. Now at the end of 1 year, on the completion of 1 year of its life, the baby gains a lot of weight. It grows maybe up to 12 kgs. Okay, इतना ज़्यादा वजन बढ़ जाता है. So people, here also, just like human babies, the cell grows up in size. Okay, now how the cell grows up in size? Point number 1, because the volume of the cytoplasm increases. Okay, then second, the mitochondria or the chloroplasts that are present within the cell, okay, they begin to divide. Now you have studied in the lower classes, like mitochondria has its own DNA, chloroplast has its own DNA. So these cell organelles, okay, these VIP cell organelles, they begin to split, they begin to divide on its own. Okay, like when a cell is growing, it requires a lot of energy. So mitochondria is going to provide a lot of energy, and for the sake of providing a lot of energy, the mitochondria will divide. Secondly, a baby plant cell, if it has to grow, if it has to perform photosynthesis, the number of chloroplasts must increase. So again, the chloroplasts are going to divide. Okay? So 1, the cell will grow, its cytoplasmic volume will increase, mitochondria, chloroplast, such organelles will divide, okay, and multiply in number. Now people, now the cell has grown, okay, growth is so done. Now what is required? Reproduction. Now if the cell has to reproduce, okay, it has to provide the essential components within it. Like we are incomplete without our brain, है ना? कि without brain we are going to do nothing. In a similar manner, if a cell has to divide, without its genetic material, without DNA, it can do nothing. So the most essential part of a cell cycle is synthesis of DNA. Okay, a single cell is going to split into 2 daughter cells, and for both the daughter cells it has to produce DNA. But the problem is it is having only one copy of DNA, and it is going to divide into two daughter cells. So it has to give a copy of DNA to each of those daughter cells. Okay. Now to provide the copy of DNA, there are some prerequisites, raw material. Okay. Like when you have to prepare pizza, you need a pizza base, you need cheese, you need all the toppings, you might need chicken as well. है ना? In the similar manner, when the cell has to produce a new copy of DNA, it will require certain raw materials. Which are they? One, DNA's cousin brother, RNA. Okay. And second one, proteins. Okay. So without RNA, without proteins, a new strand of DNA cannot be synthesized. Okay. So here RNA and proteins are synthesized. For what purpose? For the sake of DNA replication. So I repeat again. What all things are happening in the G1 phase? Point number 1. Cell is growing in size. Its cytoplasmic volume will be increasing. Mitochondria, chloroplast will divide. RNA and proteins will be synthesized for the sake of DNA replication. Understood? For the sake of DNA synthesis. Now people, this G1 phase, okay, this G1 phase is the lengthiest of all. It will take a lot of time. Okay. Now, chalo, the cell grew up in size. It has its chloroplast and mitochondria has already divided. Its cytoplasmic volume has also increased. Now the cell will think, do I need to repeat the same boring life again, or do I need to take rest from all this jholmal? Okay. So if at all the cell plans ki, okay, now I am bored, I don't want to enter the same cycle again, I am not the stereotypical cell, I want to be out of the league. So that cell will choose to move out of this cell cycle. Okay. And it will end up into a phase where it's not going to divide. Okay. Such kind of phase is called as the resting phase. Okay. So in resting phase, the cell will not divide. It's a non-dividing phase. Now you must be wondering, ki, ma'am, why a cell will enter into a non-dividing phase? Like our brain cells. They are born once. Hai na? And once they are born, after that, they will not enter into the same cell cycle. Okay? No, not at all. Okay? So people, it differs from cell to cell whether they want to like enter into the same phases of cell cycle or whether they want to escape from the cell cycle. Okay? So if they want to escape from the cell cycle, as they enter into the late G1 phase, okay, I will mention in the late G1 phase, the cell will decide whether or not to enter into a resting phase. So there are two choices. Either the cell will enter into a resting phase or it will enter into the next phase. So bacha, G1 phase will be followed by which phase? Come on, let me know in the comment section. G1 phase will be followed by which phase? Perfect, kids. G1 phase will be followed by the synthesis phase. Now what exactly will be synthesized over here? I told you, kids, कि the parent cell was having one single DNA. And in near future, the parent cell, single parent cell, is going to split into two daughter cells. So people, in order to give rise to two daughter cells, it has to give rise to two DNA strands. It is currently having only one DNA strand. So people, this DNA, its one more copy will be synthesized. Okay. The duplication of DNA will take place, and when I say the DNA will be duplicated, here the chromosome will be duplicated. Okay. So actually, I told you in the previous session also, a chromosome actually looks like this way. It looks like a rod, but right before it enters into the cell division, it duplicates, है ना? And it looks something like this, X-shaped chromosome, है ना? So people, chromosomes will duplicate, but they will remain attached. Okay, like if this is one chromosome, it won't be duplicated in this manner. It won't be duplicated in this manner. There will be one chromosome and it will duplicate, okay, but it will still remain attached with the centromere. Okay, so see what is happening in the S phase. S phase stands for the synthesis phase. I told you, synthesis phase. So in the synthesis phase, more of the DNA will be synthesized. Okay. Secondly, chromosomes will be duplicated, which will still remain attached to each other with the help of centromere. Okay, understanding? If yes, post me a yo in the chats, hit on the like button, do share to our channel, do share the session with your friends, subscribe to our channel and hit on the bell icon if you haven't yet subscribed and you are receiving our notifications. Okay, cool, sure, let's proceed. So we are done with the G1 phase, we are done with the synthesis phase. Now the synthesis phase will be followed by the next phase. Which is that phase? The next phase is the G2 phase, the second growth phase. Okay. Now people, here the cell is like mentally prepared. Now I have to split into two daughter cells. Okay. However, just like the way the cell required RNA and proteins for DNA replication, in the same way, it will require RNA and proteins for the sake of cell division. Okay, so RNA and proteins will be synthesized for the sake of cell division here in the G2 phase. So only this much task is done over here, and that's the reason why this second growth phase is very tiny, very tiny. Okay, see what all things did we discuss in the G1 phase? The cell grew in size, the cytoplasmic contents increased, mitochondria, chloroplast, they increased. Okay, and then RNA was synthesized, proteins were synthesized, and then the cell decided whether to exit and enter into the resting phase or to step into the synthesis phase. In the synthesis phase, the cell synthesized more of DNA, the chromosomes got duplicated, but they still remain attached to each other with the help of centromere. Okay, and in the G2 phase, what happened? More of RNA and proteins were synthesized, right? So people, G1 phase, S phase and G2 phase are done. Basically, our interphase is like makhan clear. If this is like crystal clear, post me in the chats. Come on people, hit on the like button. Great going. Fair. So people, in the previous session, we studied the structure of DNA. That it is double-stranded, double helical, it's polynucleotides, it's made up of polynucleotides and it's a macromolecule. Right? Now people, if the cell has to replicate the DNA, if it has to create one more copy of its DNA, okay, that will be done, of course, in the synthesis phase, right? In the synthesis phase. Now, how exactly a new copy of DNA will be synthesized? Okay, it will be synthesized by a method which is called as semi-conservative method of DNA replication. Okay, now people, the two strands of DNA are coiled around each other. They are coiled around each other. Okay, this way they are coiled around each other. So first of all, those two strands of DNA which are coiled, they will begin to uncoil from one end. From one end, they will begin to uncoil. Okay, like I'll draw it somewhere. Where should I draw? Chalo, I'll draw it over here. Okay, can I like wait? Okay, I'll keep the annotations. Okay, here I am. So I'll insert a blank slide. Okay, okay, yeah. So I'll present it again. Yeah, fine. So people, okay. So for the synthesis of a new copy of DNA, a semi-conservative method of DNA replication will be followed. So for this, let us like draw a single strand of like two strands of DNA. Okay. Now let us call this as the parent DNA. Okay, now this parent DNA, it will open up from one of its ends. Okay, it has two ends, right? Sorry, it has two ends. So people, it will open up from one of its ends. Okay, now that it has opened up, okay, a new copy of DNA, a new copy of DNA will be created. Okay, so here a new copy of DNA will be created, here a new copy of DNA will be created. So this way it will start forming. Okay, this way it will start forming. So people, like if I go back to the previous slide, okay, so this blue colored one is the old strand, the blue colored one is the old strand. So here also the blue colored one is the old strand, and the green colored ones are the new strands. Okay, so when there are two copies of DNA formed, there will be an there will be an original strand of DNA. Okay, let me draw original strand of DNA. Okay, and there will be another one, new strand of DNA. Okay, new strand of DNA. Okay, so people, when we say DNA is double stranded, so when two copies of DNA are formed, both the copies of DNA will have one original strand and one newly created strand. Okay, so this is how copies of DNA are created. Okay, a new copy of DNA is created. Basically, there will be two copies of DNA formed. Okay, finally, there was originally one more was added. So there are two copies of DNA. Okay, and this all happens in the synthesis phase. Okay, ignore my terrible drawing. Okay, this is like very poor. Okay, so people, let's have an overview of the cell cycle. We discussed that there are two phases of cell cycle. The very first one is the interphase, followed by the dividing phase, that is the mitotic phase. The interphase is again divided into three phases. The first phase is known as the G1 phase, the second phase is known as the synthesis phase, and the third phase is known as the G2 phase. Right? So people, this interphase is followed by a dividing phase which is known as the mitotic phase. So which are the steps involved in mitotic phase? What is the significance of this mitotic phase? We will be discussing all these things in detail in my upcoming session. Okay, rather in the very next session itself. Yeah, so people, how often do these cells divide? Okay, as I told, some cells might take an exit and they may enter into the resting phase. So they may not divide that often. So if ever this kind of question is asked, how long the cell cycle will continue, will it go forever? So no, it depends from cell to cell. Okay, it depends from cell to cell. For example, the brain cells, they don't divide. They lack centriole, they don't divide. Okay, then if I talk about the liver cells, now liver cells help in detoxifying the toxic substances, right? Now if at all those liver cells get damaged, only to replace those damaged cells, the liver cells might divide once or twice in a year or two. Okay, okay. Then when we talk about the surface cells, like our skin cells, epidermis, it is constantly replaced. You know, like in winter season, we see that the skin becomes too dry and it it peels off. You know, peeling off is not the appropriate term, but we feel that the skin becomes too dry and it is easily replaced by new cells which are formed underneath. You know? So yes, the surface cells are constantly replaced. And then the meristematic cells, like in plants, the meristematic tissue is present at the tips. है ना? So, bacha, whether it is apical meristem, lateral meristem or intercalary meristem, they keep on dividing rapidly so that the growth of the plant is fulfilled. है ना? The growth of the plant is attained. Not fulfilled, the growth of the plant is attained. Right? Now people, the time at which the cell divides. It's fixed so that when the new cells are formed, they are formed in uniformity. They are formed in a smooth single layer. Okay, one layer followed by another layer followed by the another layer. So in this way, okay, the cells divide. In this way, the cells are then later arranged, and that's the reason why the organism is able to function smoothly. Okay, the organism's body is able to work normally. However, when the cells are exposed to some unwanted conditions like radiations, chemicals, too much of environmental or physical stress, that time these cells forget at which rate they need to undergo cell division. Okay, and then they start dividing in an uncontrollable manner. So they don't form single layers, but they just form huge lumps, and these lumps which are formed are called as tumors. Okay, so when the cell division is controlled, layers of cells are formed, but when there is an uncontrolled cell division, there will be a lump of cell, clusters of cells which are undifferentiated, and such an undifferentiated cluster of cell which has been formed out of uncontrolled cell division is called as a tumor. Okay, so बच्चे cancerous cells lead to the formation of tumor, and that's the reason why cell division is very important, and it should take place at a normal rate. Okay, so people, I hope you enjoyed my session, and if you enjoyed my session, now it's my time to demand Guru Dakshina from you all. So people, here is the homework for the day. Okay, that's my Guru Dakshina. So people, you need to enlist the steps involved in interphase. Okay, you have to post your answer in the comment section. I'll be going through your answers, and top 3 students who answer it rapidly, I will be like declaring their names in my upcoming session, and will be referring those kids as my official Chintu candies for the day. Okay, so people, I hope you enjoyed the session. It was very informative. It would be helping you in your examinations. If you feel that, okay, if you resonate to what I said, hit on the like button. Do share this video with your friends. Share it with your friends as much as possible. Subscribe to our channel, hit on the bell icon. And if you want to recommend me anything, tell me anything, suggest me anything, request me anything, you can always write down to me, okay? Either in the comment section below, or you can reach out to me on my mail address, that is mariya.khan@vedantu.com. And thank you so much, people. What else should I say? Allah Hafiz, Milo Wapis, and keep watching Vedantu. Bye-bye. Love you all.